Testing. Testing, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2. Testing, 1. Testing, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2. Hello, hello, hello. This is Winston.
I'm Paige Steadman. Thank you. I'm Paige Steadman. I prefer they pronouns, but I will accept they, she, or he, anything but it. And I am gender fluid, non-binary under the trans umbrella. I am demisexual, panromantic. And if you're confused about what any of those words mean, don't worry, I'll get to it. I encourage you to ask me through this if something I say is not clear and you would like clarification. But let's start talking about gender identity. I think by now most people have heard of the words cis and trans, but not everybody fully knows what that means, and that's okay. A cis friend of mine was complaining that she did not ask for that label. And I said, well, tell me more about that. Do you feel like you are the gender you were assigned at birth? And she said, well, yes, it's not like I feel like I am. I know that I am. I am a woman. There's nothing to it. I'm not cis. I'm just a woman. It's like, okay. So we have to have a label for trans people, but you're not comfortable with the label for people who are not trans. No, I'm just normal. And breaking down that ingrained bigotry that she learned growing up. She's not a bad person. She's a good person. She's just ignorant, right? So if you feel like you are the gender that you were assigned at birth, you are cis. It's not an insult. The only people that really, and she didn't even think it was an insult. She just thought it was a label she didn't want. The only people that have made a big deal about it being some kind of insult tend to be the people who see trans as an insult. And trans, not feeling like the gender that you were assigned at birth, is a lot more common than people realize, because for a long time, we didn't have ways to communicate with each other. We thought we were the only people. We thought we were crazy. If we dared express ourselves, there was a lot of pushback from society. And to some extent, there still is. There are still hate crimes. There are still parents that don't accept their kids. There's still a lot of that. But I feel like the more that we can understand what things are, the more we can accept people for who they are. So the most well-known examples of trans people are people who were assigned, say, assigned to be a boy when they were born, and then later they said, nope, I'm a girl, I'm a woman. Or the other way around. They were assigned to be a girl, and no, they know they're a boy. And I'm happy that there are a lot of gender affirming surgeries for the people who want them. Not everybody wants them. There's also non-binary, and there are a lot of terms under non-binary, but it's the general category for not feeling completely 100% man or 100% woman, or sometimes switching between, sometimes being none of those, sometimes being all of those. Some people probably should talk about the difference between sex and gender. Sex tends to be how one physically presents when you're born. DNA is a lot more complicated than just XY or XX. There are a lot of variations there. And some people who are intersex present with both genitalia. And sometimes their parents make a choice for them when they're born, and sometimes not. A lot of that depends on culture. Within the non-binary spectrum, there's agender, not having a gender at all. There's gender fluid, where your gender changes. For me personally, I almost never feel 100% man or 100% woman. And sure, this body is female, but that's sex, that's not gender. And it's not defined by dysphoria. Like, I don't feel like I need to have surgery to change my body. Some people do. That's perfectly valid. Bodily dysphoria is where you feel like your body does not reflect who you are. And it's funny that the most common gender affirming surgeries are for cis people, whether it's cheekbone sculpting or having more testosterone for men or having more estrogen for women. And a lot of women have thought about, if not had, breast augmentation or a breast reduction. Lots of things that are not often recognized as being in the category of gender affirming. But really, that is. And there's nothing wrong with it. If it helps you be who you want to be, if it helps you feel the euphoria of, oh, I feel like I'm really presenting my gender now. That's amazing. And I'm really glad that we've gotten to the point where we have those options. Not everybody can afford them. Not everybody can get them. And that goes for cis people, trans people, everybody. That's a different workshop. So there are more genders than I could list for you. I will put a link of a wiki that has been made. Is it 100% complete? No. Is it necessarily, going to stay accurate? No. We're discovering new words, new terminologies for genders that have always been there. And we're finally able to talk to each other about it. So let me put this in the chat just in case anybody is curious. Most of the non-binary communities that I've been a part of on social media, getting together in person, either way, most of us agree that there are probably infinite genders, and most people's who are not cis, our genders may not be exactly what the other person's is, even if we use the same label. But, I'm not sure that cis people are 100% the same identity-wise as each other. I don't know. I know there are a lot more aspects to identity than just gender, but it's definitely one of them. So before I move on to anything else, are there any questions? Anything anybody wants to share about their own experiences?
I will just say, Paige, that as you talk through the different things or the different ways that we can potentially identify ourselves, there's this thing running through my head. Like, it's like really cool to be a human at this point in the world, because there's so many different ways that we present ourselves and we can be. And when I think about the uniqueness of us as a species in the universe, the fact that we can do this, to me, just really, to me, is a wonderful thing. That we are at this point where we just really can understand ourselves even further. And part of this is data and science and future and history and this overwhelming internal spirituality. So that's my comment so far. So thank you for kind of walking through that. When you was walking through, I was like, oh my gosh, that's even more than I thought of. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Winston.
If anyone has any questions, feel free to just raise your hand, jump in, chat, whatever you might wish to do as Paige walks us through this.
All right, well, interrupt me anytime if you've got questions or if I'm not clear. I'm going to ask you some questions now. It's up to you whether you answer. You don't have to. When you think of masculinity and femininity, what do you think of? What do those things mean to you?
You know, I think we were orientated to think of, in my generation at least, not so much in younger generations, to think of the man as being the strong one and the woman as being the weak one, physically weak. To think of the woman as taking care of the children, the man going to work, that kind of a thing. Very, I mean, my mother, it would be unheard of if her children, her girls, didn't get married by a certain age to a man.
Wow.
You know, that was a very bad thing. That it was like something was wrong if we didn't get married to a man. And so, yeah, it's interesting that she has a gay son and two great gay grandsons. But she didn't like that at all. Yeah, and a bisexual granddaughter. So, yeah.
Thank you. And that's a really good point, that generations and cultures that change, every 10 years, 20 years, I don't know. That's not my expertise. Cultures are constantly changing, and how one sees femininity and masculinity tends to be tied up in one's culture. In some cultures, many Native American cultures, there are two-spirit people. And for some of them, that's gender. For some of them, that's sexuality. And it's not something, even if I have one two-spirit friend who, he and I were talking, they and I were talking, she and I were talking, and for them, any pronouns are fine. And he was talking about, sometimes I feel like I'm a guy, sometimes I feel like I'm a woman. Most of the time I feel like I'm both or neither. I say, that's a lot like what I'm feeling. But I'm not going to use the term two-spirit for myself because I am not Native American. And that is an identity that is strictly for their culture and should not be appropriated by other people. So we've got other words: gender flux, gender fluid, demi-girl, demi-boy. A lot of categories, and people are still figuring out how to put labels on themselves. And I think it's really cool that we're finally in a place where we can have groups across continents on social media, and we're supporting each other and helping each other find that out now. It really, I have seen a lot of testimonials from people who are so alone, and they think they're the only person in the world going through this, and then they find out they're not, and it's so heartwarming. I know for me, as a little kid, I thought everybody, yeah, because little kids, they think everybody's like them, everybody has the same experience. Well, I was 4 or 5, and I thought everybody switched genders whenever, and I got quite an eye-opening in kindergarten. One of my best friends wanted to play house, and of course I was taller, so she's like, yes, I'm the wife and you're the husband. I was like, okay, sure. And and so we were playing happily. I think the big disaster that day was that there was a leak in the kitchen sink. So, okay, kids having fun. I lived in Texas, which, if you've ever lived there, it's a very difficult place to be different in any way. So a little boy in our class came up to us, and he made a big fuss that girls couldn't be married to other girls. And I said, well, that's okay. I'm a boy. And everybody, including my best friend, came down on me. No, 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 no. You are not a boy. You are a girl. Okay, but I'm a boy right now. And they said, no, no, no. And the teacher even got into it and looked up from whatever she was doing and came over and, no, no, no. You may be playing that you're a boy, but you are a girl. And I was so ashamed that I had obviously done something wrong that I didn't understand, and nobody could explain to me what I had done wrong. So for me, and this was in the late 80s, I just pushed it down and tried to be as much of a girl as I could be to fit in with, what people expected of me. And I went into denial for a long time. And then finally, when I was in a much better place in life with supportive people, I started having dreams again. And I remember having these dreams as a kid, but I started having dreams again that, oh no, I'm a man in this dream. And it felt right. Or somebody would, be talking to somebody else and they'd refer to me as he. And it felt amazing. I was so euphoric at that moment. And I've heard a lot of people say that figuring out your gender, if you're questioning it, don't rely on the dysphoria that you may or may not feel when somebody refers to you as your assigned gender at birth. But you may or may not have that. But if you feel euphoria when somebody refers to you as a different gender, or when you get to wear something that makes you feel more a different gender than you were assigned, that's the thing to pay attention to and explore if you want to, if you're brave enough, if you're in a place where it's safe to do that.
Paige, how do you think about this when it comes to our world, our theater world? Have you been exposed to that in our environment, one way or the other? Tell us about your experience with that here in our theater life.
Okay. There is a wide difference in reaction between different theaters. There are a couple of theaters that I had before I came out as non-binary. They had been very welcoming, very accepting, cast me in almost everything I auditioned for if there was a part for me. And as soon as I came out, the role stopped. And sometimes I would audition for you know, a man's part. Sometimes I'd audition for a woman's part. At one point, I auditioned for a male part. I got it, but the director insisted that I play it as a woman. And that crushed me. On the other hand, there are some theaters where you can audition for whatever part you think you can play. They may or may not cast you, but you can at least audition and they will take you seriously. And I have played a couple of guys and a couple of non-binary people. And it was a euphoric experience. I recently got to play Captain Edward Smith of the Titanic.
Oh, wow.
And the fact that people were not boxing me into, you can only be a female, was so euphoria inducing. I remember I came out of the restroom where I'd been doing makeup and binding and things, and I put on the blazer, man's blazer that my director had lent me because I didn't have one in the right color. And the other actors in the room said, "Oh, this is for the actor, Paige? Wow. Oh, that looks so good." And I was so full of joy at that moment.
Great. Carol, I know you had a question. Carol.
Yeah, you talked about a guy and a girl, and just throwing you a little bit of a curve. What does a guy feel like? And what does a woman feel like? You know, so you're talking about these feelings that you may feel like a guy or may feel like a girl. And then my next thing is it necessary for us to identify with a gender? Now, something that you said that I think was really kind of hit home with me is the word euphoria. So, as we're going through all of these machinations within ourselves, is it what makes us feel good? Is that the gender? You know, because it seems like there's a very thin line there. And so, yeah,
Okay, that's a great question. Thank you.
guy feeling or the girl feeling. Yeah.
And part of it is going to be different for everybody, which I would love to hear if people have, if you know what your gender is, what does that mean to you? I would love to hear more about that. Euphoria is defined as a feeling or state of intense excitement and happiness. That's one of the definition, the experience or effect of pleasure or excitement, intense feelings of well-being, happiness. And for me, whether I am a guy, a girl, both, between, it's more something that I feel and that I know, which can be a very confusing answer. In the future, science fiction is saying that we might someday be able to download our brains into computers when our bodies are about to die. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. So my question is this: if you don't have any body parts and you're not looking down and saying, well, these are my body parts, so that it must be what I am. If you got to pick your own voice, but even, you would have to record every single word for them to really do a good, well, AI might be better by then, but still, without having to record your own voice, every single word, if you had to just pick a voice from the ones presented to you. If you had to pick your pronouns, I mean, you're in a computer now. Would you see yourself as an it, as a she, as a he, Z? There are so many pronouns, often pulled from other languages too. And you don't have to answer it, but it's kind of the way I think about it when people ask me how I know what gender I am. I don't know if that helps at all.
The exact opposite of what Carol asked you. Would it could you explain how like you feel when people try to take away or diminish what you feel inside?
Yes, that is an excellent question. Thank you. I have been, if I can use a concrete example, I'm with a couple of very supportive theater groups. Sometimes, especially the people who knew me before I was out, they forget. And so before doing an improv show, we all check in with each other. We go over names, pronouns, is anything physically hurting us, any restrictions to what we can do today, any sensitive topics that, we really like, oh, my goldfish just died. Let's not talk about, pet death or goldfish, stuff like that. And that day I had let them know, I'm feeling really he today. And you'll probably see a lot of my characters come out as male. And so the scene was set up for us very, very specifically by the audience. They're giving us the title Summer of Eden. And then one of my friends came out on stage and she was, Eve reaching for the apple, knowing she shouldn't. And I came out, Eve, what have we said about the apple? And, I've studied enough, I've been acting all my life that, yeah, if I'm playing a guy character, I want to make sure that comes across. My posture is different, my legs set differently, my hips are different, just the way I carry myself. And the audience loved it. They understood immediately, I think, most of them. But then one of the other people in the improv troupe, it was an interruption game, said, yes, so now what does Eve's mother do? What? And it's improv, so I have to say yes and, right? I'm not going to argue. I just have to go with it and suddenly become very feminine. And I felt so crushed inside. It was somebody that I had thought understood. A, not a bad person, just somebody who's still struggling with the concepts. And I felt like no matter what I did, I would still be shoved back into that assigned role that wasn't me. I felt very invalidated. And at intermission, I just had to go cry for a while because I was not processing it well. And at the end of the show, I talked to him about it, and he was very apologetic. He just didn't think about it. He had forgotten what I had said about my pronouns earlier. But it was crushing. Does anybody else have anything that they want to share about their own experiences or more questions or anything that they would like to offer?
Writing a play, which is what I do, or writing a play with a character that's non-binary or has a gender identity thing that's going on. What is some advice you have? I don't recall myself writing a character that has that, but as a writer, you always want to explore what you hear
Yeah.
and what you see and what's going on around you. What's some advice you would give, not just me, but for any one of us as creators as we think about that?
I would ask that you not make their gender identity their sole reason for being. That's a mistake that I've seen a lot. And, there are some points in time where it may feel like that for a person, but they've still got other things going on. They still have connections with people they care about, people who accept them or don't accept them. they have other goals. Survival is always a goal. And depending on, where your character is, they have other things they want and need. And there are other obstacles besides. So I do like seeing, and this is just me personally, I like seeing acknowledgement that unless it's in the far future and, idealistic, hopefully, maybe, society will evolve someday, acknowledgement that there is a struggle. Every marginalized group has different struggles, whether it's race, ethnicity, religion, gender identity, sexuality. They have different struggles they go through. And the whole play doesn't have to be about the struggle because of that, unless that's what the play is about. Some people can do that and write it really well. But they have other things in their life too. Does that answer your question at all?
It does. It sounds like it's really a human thing. We all are going through something,
Yeah.
and with someone who is in the gender identity life, you said something that just stood out to me, and I wrote it down, and it was the word survival. That seems to be so emblematic of not just the community, but just many of us,
Yeah.
of ethnicity, of age, of maladies, whatever is going on. It seems like survival is a key thing there. I think that's great. Anyone else? I see a lot of cool people here today. So Alicia, Kim, Russ, Donna, any comments you have for us about the wonderful stuff that Paige has shared with us so far? I saw Kim smile, but she may not have been ready to say something. Kim, are you muting yourself? Are you talking? You're on mute.
Hello,
Oh,
I'm
hey,
off
hey,
of
Kim.
mute. How are you?
Hey, Kim.
Hello.
I'm just really interested to be a part of this and listening to you all. Um I've actually tackled a very interesting thing. I've written a novel called Vicissitudes, and I had actually talked to Carol about turning it into a play,
Oh, wow.
but it's a very sort of it feels very controversial to me because I wrote the book. It was picked up by Transgress Press.
Wow.
And so, it's out there. But what's interesting, I got so much only positive feedback from non-trans people. Trans people were very resentful of me writing it, even though I'm in the LGBT community. Um, and so I'm always interested in these ideas that are so contradictory to me. So I wrote a novel about this because I spent like 6 or 7 years researching it. I had a trans editor. I had several trans editors. I did many, many interviews. I did everything, everything. Um, Yet trans people were very disrespectful of me that because I'm not trans,
Ah,
I had no right to write it. So when I listened to a lot of things that you were saying, Paige, and I was sort of intrigued by this idea of there's a lot of contradictory ideas, like not wanting, like the labels are a problem as a society, as
yeah.
human beings, labels are a problem. Yet we always label ourselves to make sure that people know what our identity is. And then once you, like your example of when you said that you were out, when you came out, then the whole situation changed in terms of how you were perceived in the theater world. And then you talk about this sense of euphoria. And I'm thinking when I step back from this particular conversation and how normal is it for us all to be feeling euphoric all the time? Like, is that a natural state that we should all be in? So I'm fascinated by these ideas because like when you talked about survival and the way that a book or a piece of art should be. My whole book is about this is not his only, my character's name is John, and his being trans is not all there is to him. And so the whole book was fighting for his humanity. Like, yes, I'm trans, but I'm all these other things. I'm intellectual. I read books. I'm in love with this girl. I have all these other assets to me. So I'm interested in working with, talking to Carol a little bit more about this, because I think this book would be a great play. But I just, as the writer of the book, I feel very intimidated by this trans conversation, because people are very negative about it in terms of my involvement, even though I'm an LGBT person who is really trying to humanize and make this book for non-trans people, because I want people are interested, they're trans adjacent, they're interested, they want to understand it. And that was what I was trying to do, but I got a lot of blowback, and it sort of has been a very hard world for me to live in. So I'm interested that Carol brought me here and I'm happy to be here, but it's a very fine line.
I'm sorry that you have experienced so much pushback on that. It is a fine line. As writers, yeah, we often start with what we know, but if that's the only thing we write, it gets really boring really quick. So
Correct.
we have to write about people who are different from us, as well as people who are like us.
Mhm.
And I think every community has some people who will be more accepting and some people who are feeling threatened by, you're not going to represent us, right? Because you're not one of us. Well,
Mhm.
I think every community's got that. And you can't please everybody, and that's really hard.
Mhm.
But I am glad that you did your research. You have a trans editor. I
And
mean,
publish and
yeah,
publish.
you're
Yeah.
trans published. I mean, I granted, I have not read your book, but from what you're describing, you're doing everything right. So I'm sorry that you're getting pushback from people who maybe just don't know or appreciate that you did the research. You are involving trans people in this. You're not just doing whatever you think it is without knowing anything about it.
Mhm.
Kim, can you say the name of your book again? Can you share the name?
Vicissitudes. Vicissitudes.
Got it. And it's already out there?
Yes. Mhm.
Wonderful. That is going on my reading list. RP Singletary?
Yeah, Kim, I want to know more, and I don't mean to put you on the spot because it sounds like this is in the process. But if I can verbally push you in the direction it seems you're already leaning, I want to see this play.
I do too.
Yeah, because I think I think that might do something with the messiness that we've just been
Mhm.
commiserating on. You know, messiness
Mhm.
for lack of a better word. Uh,
Mhm.
um, yeah.
I think it's what's interesting about the book is I wrote it with so much like love. I mean, I loved this character. I fell in love with the character, and I wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote, and it was just a beautiful storyline because he fell in love with a woman, um and it was a cisgender woman who fell in love with him, and they met at a wedding, and it was just, I mean, what I loved about it, it was just such a normalization of what's possible, right? Like, he's at the wedding, he's working the wedding, he's the working at the wedding of a gay female couple who were getting married, and this cis woman meets him, falls in love, and then they start this relationship, and then it's all about the group of friends around them and how they all react. So one of them is jealous because she used to know him when he was female and they had a relationship. So there's some lots of complications, but it's all about the friendships and how we as people deal with difference. And that's what the book was about. And then there's this one trans person who had issues at work because he worked in a school. You know, it was all the good stuff, bathrooms. It just really pointed out all of these issues that are surround the community. And everybody who read the book, there was all these reviews saying, oh, you know, it's brilliant. I love it. I learned so much. A really humanizing moment. And then, you know, there was only a couple negative reviews, but it was all like, she's not trans, meaning me. And so why would I even read this? Blah. So
Yeah.
I was just very turned off by the whole thing. I'll be really honest with you. And then I know that the book is good. I know people got a lot out of it. I got a lot out of it, transformative for myself as well. And so I want to kind of revisit it and do it as a play because I think that's where people see the dimensionality of it that you can't really see if you look at it on a flat page and say, she's not trans, so I'm not reading it. Or, you know, how dare she write it? I mean, it's like the people who said that didn't understand it. And that's kind of what was powerful for me. But Carol, say something, help me.
Yeah, well, you know, I've read it, as you know, I have a copy of it. And at our spoken word, we've read parts of it and had discussions on it. And this particular play festival that we're having in the spring, the maximum length of a play would be 30 minutes. But your story in vicissitudes, I think, in a 3-act structure would be a full-length play. But that doesn't mean that we can't entertain, you know, your story. It would be absolutely wonderful. And the way your story reads, Kim, it really invites a discussion at the end of it.
Mhm.
So I think it should be written and staged for a talk back that way.
Mhm.
And I should have added first, it's such a joy to have you and to have Erica here, my two sister writer friends, and, you know, both a part of the community. And, you know, I love you guys. And Erica was in Georgia until recently, and now she's in Texas. And you're all the way on the other side as well, you know. So, but hey, this is a forum that we can communicate on. And yes, absolutely. You know, you brought up a point, is that there's a bias in society that another person cannot feel and understand another person unless they are that.
Mhm.
You know, like, you cannot understand what I feel to be, what it's like to be Black because you're not Black. Or you cannot understand what it's like to be a lesbian because and that's wrong.
Mhm.
That
And
happens so
the
often.
whole purpose of us having these series of teachings over the past several weeks, and the last one will be next week, and then to go into the festival, is to bring about harmony and understanding. That is and to take away that we don't need to put ourselves in a box in terms of who we identify with or for or how. We can understand each other. And the Atlanta dramatists, that's what we want to make happen. And that's why we've had this, we're doing this initiative, and why we have had a diversity group. And yeah, it's been a beautiful thing. It really has. Yeah.
I don't want to belabor what Carol said, but the discussion here about the multitude of boxes that people try to put us all in, it gives rise to us as creators trying to find those stories that break through those boxes. Kim, to me, that's a scenario where you had all those great reviews and you had two people who felt one way or the other. It's going to happen. I tell people all the time, if you shouldn't necessarily love everything that I've ever done from a play perspective, but if my characters are there and I've done
Mhm,
the research like you've done, then that's
mhm,
all I'm asking for, that you knew that you felt the story, even if you don't love the story.
mhm,
I,
mhm.
I think that that's part of the whole view of us of creating stories like this is to tell it in a way that everyone. I do not love the story of everything I've ever heard, but if I know that the story is authentic, then I'm good with that.
Well, and the purpose of the stories is to get closer to understanding, if nothing else. So I don't claim that I wrote it and now I'm an expert, but I
Right.
claim that I care. That was the point. That was the point. I care. I care. I know this is a community that needs understanding from a massive audience. So but I do agree that the dramatization of it is going to change the trajectory of it. And I came to that after a couple of years of thinking about it, like what to do with vicissitudes. And this is sort of a blessed moment when Carol and I reconnected recently, and this conversation came up. But I'm very grateful to be here and to be in this conversation with you all. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. And I think that for any kind of storyteller, part of our job is to help people have empathy for people and think about what it's like to be in a situation that's not your life, what somebody else is going through. I think that's exactly it.
Mhm.
I know that we are running short on time. I can go longer, but I understand if other people have to drop off. I'd like to do a brief discussion about sexuality. This is not my area of expertise. Um, I mean, I work in theater, so to a certain degree, but not, I would love to hear from other people on this. Carol.
What about sexuality?
Well, it's part of our diversity workshop is gender identity and sexuality,
Mhm.
and just how, for instance, heterosexuality, homosexuality, there are a couple of other kinds too. Actually, there are a lot of other kinds. Uh, some people are androsexual. I'm going to get the terminology wrong unless I look it up because this is not something that I have. But some people are attracted to men, some people are attracted to women. Some people, T for T relationships, trans people attracted to other trans people, some people attracted to people who are more masculine, more feminine, or, bisexual, pansexual. And the differences there, I think everybody's got a slightly different definition. So I would love to hear, no matter what your sexuality is, some people are asexual, for instance. If there are any experiences where you have felt like people assumed your sexuality and got it wrong, or when something went really well for you and they assumed and they got it right. If anybody's willing to share that.
So I have a basic question, which is that when we think about sexuality, I always think of it as desire, which is the bottom line. So it doesn't matter who you're desiring, it's just this feeling, this desire, this yearning for something, which is fabulous. And that as a concept alone, we could write for the rest of our lives on that, just desire and how it manifests. And I think that what is complicating of this conversation is that then we have all of these little micro moments in it. So it's like, is it T for T? Is it a woman? Is it a man? Is it a this? Is it that? And I feel like that is what like makes it a really cumbersome conversation. It makes it a cumbersome experience. And I just worry about that in terms of, as we talk about humanizing the community and making it palatable for a lack of a good word. So I just wonder about the labeling,
Okay.
which, as a world, we try to not label. And then in this community, we have uber labeling, and we're all talking about the same thing, which is desire.
Yes, and different types of desire too. Being romantically attracted to somebody, being sexually attracted to somebody, sometimes those overlap, sometimes those don't.
Sure, but those are no nuances that are not necessarily for the public eye. So if I have an attraction to you or a desire to you, that's between you and me. So if we manifested in sex or
Yes,
just eating popcorn on the weekends, it
and
doesn't.
I love that. I guess you're right. I did not phrase things correctly. Because we're talking about diversity, types of relationships that we don't often see represented, that a lot of people feel like, okay, why should I watch that love story? I'm never represented in a love story. And they feel very excluded. I had a discussion with one of my elder friends lately, and they were like, oh, but there I don't see any need to acknowledge that women are ever attracted to other women. When he's a writer who stated something about, oh yes, and 50% of like something like 80% of men would be attracted to this statue and 1% of women. I'm just like, where are you getting your statistics? Where? Because I don't care if he ever writes anything about a relationship that doesn't mirror his own desires. I don't care. But for him to be promoting the notion that there are so few people who can be attracted to the same gender or anything like that, people are so, they have preconceptions, and some of us try to open our minds to, maybe my preconceptions are wrong, and some don't. So I guess talking about diversity in writing, you don't have to portray a relationship that's not something that you've ever experienced. But what if we did? What if people could see themselves represented more often? Maybe that could change the overall societal bigotry if that's normalized more.
But think about like a normal heterosexual couple, right? Mary and John, right? Just regular
Okay.
cis people. We have no idea what they're doing in their bedrooms, right? But they still get to be Mary and John, just regular Mary and John. And even if they're tying each other up at night and having cream cheese all over their bed, nobody knows, nobody cares really. You know what I mean? Like that. I think that's what I'm always curious about, that these nuances that make a couple. So we're underrepresenting if we don't talk about the T on T with a little third party, or like all of these nuances of relationships. If we have to name and represent each one of them,
We don't have to.
right?
I'm just bringing it up as these people exist, and not everybody even knows.
Absolutely. Yes. And that's why what the work that we're all doing here matters, because the visualization of them, their existence, their presence is very, very important. But I guess I'm just always struggling with the blowback of even the masses when they don't really need to do it. But I think because we keep pushing the agenda of the naming and the labeling and this and that,
You
that
don't use labels. You don't have to use labels.
Sure, but I think we do. We do. I mean, you've listed 10 different versions of relationship.
Sure. And if you're writing about it, you may or may not use the label. That's,
Right.
I'm not pressuring you to
Yeah.
use the label. I was just giving examples of these don't get represented as often.
Right. And that's our work. That's what we're doing. I mean, that's what's
Right.
so exciting about it. But I just, I'm a bit of a kumbaya. I just want us all to have understanding and some empathy for each other. And
Agreed.
yeah, that's the work we're up to, I guess.
It is, especially right now with so many laws threatening. A lot
Yeah.
of my friends' marriages are in danger right now if the laws get passed that people want to pass.
Eating my
And
own.
yeah,
Yes.
so do you know what I'm saying? That I think the arts is one way that we can fight for justice that way, that
Yeah.
people can just be seen as people.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Oh, it's a powerful way, right? That the arts and the stories that we write, because there is such a push from different places to change the story of our lives, change the stories of who we love and why we love them, change our narratives of what's happened to us, how we define us. And so I think this Paige and everyone, what we're talking about here is really like the story of humanity on some level. Like we're at this inflection point here as human beings. Like, what are we gonna do? Are we going to love each other and say, hey, how do you, as you define yourself, how do I love that? Or are we going to go and try to find some path into the past or somewhere else that minimizes who we are as people? Because as time goes on over these last however long we've been on this earth, we're getting more different types of humans, not less. And so,
Right.
are we trying to constrain each other, which does not work, right? The whatever boxes it is, it's not working. Or do we be open to the fluidity of mankind?
Mhm.
Yeah. I think there are pros and cons about labels. If people don't want to be assigned a label, that's fine. For me, I am in a safe place where I can let other people know that they're not the only ones. And when I came out with my pronouns, one of my students, because every morning I would do, all right, names, pronouns might change. That's fine. We're going to accept that. When I was teaching theater camps, and after I told the students that, I was, at that time, I was she, they. And the look on one of my students' faces was,
What was that term, Paige?
at that point, I was she or they.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh, there's Kitty. But one of my students came up to me and during a break and she said, I've been thinking about trying they. I still want to be she with my family. I don't think they'd accept that, but could you try calling me they today? And they is what they ended up with. So they were fine with either one. But that day I tried, and they didn't even want to ask the rest of the class to do it. They weren't that confident yet. But her telling me that my telling her my pronouns gave her the strength, the courage to ask for that. And I haven't kept in touch with her. She was a minor. So I don't know, if they are still doing she, they. I don't know if they've, changed. It doesn't matter. I just felt so honored that I could help her explore if that was right for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of labels is visibility for people who don't know about it. Like I never heard the term non-binary until maybe a decade ago, if that. And I just thought I was crazy. I never told anybody, as an adult, I never asked them anything because I just thought, no, if I tell anybody, they're going to put me in an asylum or something. I was so scared. And then I discovered that it wasn't just me. So whether you like labels or not, they can be useful for helping people look up things and figure out who they are and have the courage to start questioning and not be ashamed of it, even if they've been told they should be ashamed all their life, whether it's gender, sexuality, anything.
Carol, thank you. Thanks, Carol.
Yeah, Russ, I think, needed to say something. You had your hand up a little while ago, Russ.
Hey, thank you. I am about 5 or 6 minutes ago, I really had a strong flashback to a movie I saw that I believe is based on a Scott Fitzgerald short story. You may have seen it. I think Brad Pitt was in it. The Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
Mm.
And to sort of, at least for just to speak for me and no one else, to get outside of my own box. The nature of relationship, the broadest definition of those words, nature and relationship. If you don't know the story, Benjamin Buttons is born a very old man. He ages in reverse chronology. And at middle age, he finds the love of his life, who of course is aging in the normal way. I saw this movie a very long time ago. I think I've only seen it once. I don't think I have even begun to get what that story is about in light of every topic of these weekly conversations we're about to wrap up. And you can fill in the blank with the aging in chronological or anti-chronological order with any of these other slices of humanity. And it's just I got to get up and walk around. This is, I got to move these thoughts through my head. It's just, this is powerful, powerful display of creativity. That something like that resonates for so long. And it may have even been a story that F. Scott Fitzgerald did not finish and he died. I think the story I heard, I believe, was it sat around Hollywood a very long time before somebody picked it up and did something with it. But to me, it's a masterpiece. For so many reasons, I'm only beginning to sort of, I need to watch it again. But what is love? What is desire? And you're confronted with, forget any sort of label. You are literally aging in the opposite direction of this other person who is your soulmate. I mean, it's just, and he's born and his parents don't know what to do with him. So, it's just what a mess with putting people in boxes, I mean, what is fact? What is not fact? What is opinion? What is a label? But yeah, I've sort of been noodling on all of that for about the last 10 minutes. So I was turning off my camera for a minute, so yeah.
You got us curious about going back to watching that movie again. 'Cause it
Most
has-
definitely, I'm going to.
Definitely has been. Carol, I think you had your hand up.
Yes, I did. I wanted Russ to, that was great, that movie, Benjamin Button, and definitely comes under the subject of diversity. But before we go, and I have another meeting at 12:30, we have covered over these weeks, so we only have one more week to go, the full gamut of diversity: sexual orientation, gender identity, ethnicity, disability, religion, age, non-traditional families, neurodivergent, socioeconomic status, and national origin. We would have covered all of those topics. And so, Winston, if you would reiterate again before we wrap up how people can apply on the website and how they can be a part of this festival by submitting a play. And Kim, I'm sending you something in your email, and you and I will definitely get together one-on-one and have a chat.
Okay.
But I do hope that you will be a part of the Diversity Festival, vicissitudes or not, in some shape or form. You definitely have the qualifications to join us and be a part of the festival. Yeah.
By the
Yes.
way, while everyone was talking, I did what we say in New York is I copped a copy of Kim's book. So I have that just sitting in my Kindle now, ready for me to check it out. So thanks.
Oh, good, great.
Thanks for that. Like Carol was saying, we are so very excited about this Diversity Play Festival. I really want to thank Paige for spending time with us today. Paige is not feeling so well, and she was able to, he was able to spend time with us today and really just walk us through what things that many of us aren't so familiar with. So thank you so much, Paige. Thank you for this as you're dealing with your medical situation, you were just able to spend time saying, all right, let me just jump in and do this. And I wish the best for our gentleman, Charlie, that wasn't able to join us today. Hopefully he's okay.
I
Uh,
hope so.
yeah, I hope everything worked out very well with him. My name is Winston. I'm part of the Atlanta Dramatists. We have been so excited. Carol just shared really what our vision is to help every one of us who have stories in our hearts be able to spread them and to share them. That to me, and probably this is exactly what Paige said earlier, to me, that is one of the most powerful ways that we can combat all of the hysteria and all of the chaos that's around us by telling our genuine, human, authentic stories. So if you go to atlantadramatist.org, you go on to the events, there's an actual list of our Diversity Play Festival with some really detailed information, including the Google form that you can go and fill out and apply and put your information in. I did put it here as well inside of the chat function for those of you who wish to just go in and just click it. I know that all of you are going to be excited about it. Hopefully you participate in one form or the other. I want to also thank Dan Guyton and Kate Guyton, who are typically our leaders when it comes to these sessions. They are taking a much deserved time with their family this Thanksgiving. So I'm so glad I was able to be here and to walk us through this. This has been so cool. Paige, again, thank you, thank you, thank you. We all giving you virtual love, whether it's virtual claps or official claps. We really appreciate you spending time with us today. That is all I have. So please go to atlantadramatist.org. We are so looking forward to you coming and joining us next week. I am hopeful that I'm able to join that one. I have like 5 meetings on December 7th. So I got to figure out which ones. I got to figure out how to balance. Everybody wants on December 7th, this coming thing, including my wife's birthday. So I got a lot going on December 7th that I got to figure out because that topic of age, whew, I am so excited about that as well. So thank you all for this. Again, Paige, phenomenal job today. And we will hear from you all soon. We will record this. We have recorded this. So we'll be finding a way to actually put this out for those of you who are members. And so I'm part of the Atlanta Dramatists. Have a phenomenal day. We will see you next week for our last session.
Thank you, everyone. And
Thank
thank you, Winston, for hosting.
You're so welcome.